Hey guys, so I also know that the book version of partial quotient is very extensive, and I do have a different way that I do that that actually works for all kids if they know their basic facts, which again is half the struggle. But if they do know their basic facts and if they can understand a little bit of estimation, then this way is really great for them. So if I had a number like 358 divided by 5, I would make my regular division sign, but I have this big long line I do down the side. And a lot of you have done this before, so feel free to do this and modify it as you need to. But for those of you who haven't seen it before, this just might be helpful. So usually what I do is I just say, how many times can 3 go into this huge number right here? And then kids are going to automatically be overwhelmed. And then that's where I remind them, well, think of tens that we could multiply by or hundreds we could multiply by. Could we multiply by something like 100? And if some kid will probably say yes, and that's okay. So we'll put our 100 over here. And we'll say, okay, so 100 times 5, how close did that get us? And we would write that 500 right here. And immediately they'd say, ooh, that was too far. And if they didn't, you could guide them in that and say, yeah, that was a little too much. 100 is going to be way too much. So let's go smaller than that. What's half of 100? Well, 50. In my head, can I multiply by 50? And again, that's a skill that we should be working on probably daily in class, just trying to have them multiply by multiples of 10 in their head. And so we'll say, let's see, well, just try it. 50, and let's see how close that gets us. So 50 times 5. Well, we know 5 times 5 is 25. Have that 0 we can pop on the end, so that gets us to 250. Well, hey, that's less than 358, but it's pretty close. And if they don't choose 50, if they choose 10, whatever they choose is fine. It doesn't matter as long as it's smaller than that 358. And you write that number over to the right. So we'll subtract and say, okay, well, let's see what we have left. So here we have 8 left. And again, your numbers might be different because they might have chosen a number smaller or bigger than 50, and that's okay. So now we'll say, okay, we've got 5. How many times can it go into 108 now? Can it go in 50 times? Could we do 50 again? No, that would be bigger. That's 250. That's way bigger than 108. So could we do something smaller than that? And some kids probably going to say, well, I know that 10 times 5 is 50, and that gets us a little bit less. That takes a chunk away. So we'll say, yeah, 10 times 5 is 50. So let's get rid of that. And we'll subtract. And then we have 58 left. Could we do 10 again? Most time your class is going to say, yeah, because that'll get us really close to that 50. And so we'll put our 10 over here. If not, sometimes you're going to get that class that's like, no, let's do 5 instead. And that's okay because they'll just make this part longer and this part longer. And that is, again, totally fine because they're using the facts that they know. And that's really all that matters. And so then we'll do our subtracting our 50 because we know that 10 times 5 got us that close. And now we have 8 left. And we say, okay, now we have 8 left. How many times can 5 go into 8? Oh, just one time? Fantastic. If I had more room, I'd be able to do this. So then you would subtract it, 8 minus 5. And now you might come down to this little 3. Well, what am I going to do with this 3? That 3 is going to end up being our remainder because it's smaller than my divisor. So I'm going to say, well, we're down to a number that's smaller than your divisor. So we know that's going to be our remainder. Let's pop that up real quickly anyways, because now we know we're going to be kind of done. So we pop that up where the quotient goes, but I don't have a regular quotient. What is that going to be? How do you think we're going to get that? We have a bunch of partial quotients over here, just pieces of quotients, but what should we do to get the whole quotient? And hopefully that guides them, which usually it does, to adding these partial quotients together. And once they do that, they're going to see, okay, we have 71. So we're going to do 71 with a remainder of 3. And that would be our final quotient. And that's my way of doing partial quotient. That's a little bit easier.